Well, welcome to the second episode of the Informing New Zealand Beef program podcast, highlighting the video interviews that the delegation that went up to North America in 2023 had an opportunity to see firsthand the cutting-edge research in the North American beef industry. They were so excited that they wanted to bring you a second season where I talked to the people that they met on the ground, sharing their insights, inspiration that they gained on the trip to share with you. Joining us now is Mokah Shmigelsky, the CEO of OneCup AI, based out of Vancouver in Canada. Now, the company that she has developed, an AI-powered facial recognition technology, nicely named BETSY, is one of the favourite presentations of our New Zealand team that were at the 2023 Beef Improvement Federation Symposium, held just before the Calgary Stampede in July 2023. And BETSY, we're going to learn a little bit more about with Mokah, who joins me now from Vancouver, Canada. Now, tell us first about your presentation at the Beef Improvement Federation Symposium, a little bit about the event itself as well, for our New Zealand beef farmers who wouldn't know much about the event.
Absolutely. So the event in Calgary was held over a couple of days, and it brought together producers from all over the world. Obviously, there was Canadian, American, New Zealand, Australia, pretty much from everywhere. Over the few days that we held the event, there was different presentations mostly in the topic of phenotypes and how to improve the overall genetic optimization of a herd using the tracking of phenotypes in addition to the genotypic tracking of the animals. My presentation, where BETSY comes into play, is BETSY is a computer vision pipeline who is designed to track, identify, and monitor livestock at the farm level. And what we can train BETSY to do is automate the classification of phenotypes on livestock. And so we've been working together with the Canadian Angus Association and other breed associations here in Canada to figure out how we best optimize the BETSY system to track and identify the phenotypes that are in question.
I'm looking at a photo here of the facial recognition technology that's AI powered. How does one have a career that leads up to doing something so incredible around identifying phenotype through this type of technology? It's like a merge of two different worlds. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you founded BETSY.
It is really like a merge of two different worlds, and that's where our other founders come into play. So I'm one of 4 founders of OneCup AI, and the other founders are my cousins, Keith and Connie Day, and they have been beef producers since long before I was even a thought. And so what they wanted to do, as we were sitting around a campfire in late 2019, they wanted to identify their animals. They wanted to know if that was possible using computer vision. So my background is not technical at all. I went to film school and I learned how to do writing, producing, and directing. But outside of that, that's sort of the technical background that I have. Whereas my husband, Jeffrey, he's our 4th founder, and he's got a master's in artificial intelligence and computer vision. And so really the technical knowledge and backbone of the pipeline comes from his brains and his development. And so what he said at that campfire was, I'm sure we can ID those cows. Let's take some footage and give it a try. And that's essentially where the whole idea formulated. And then we've just since added on different features into our pipeline, all tied back to that Face ID, essentially the same as your phone, so that we can uniquely identify the animals that we're monitoring for any changes in their behavior or the phenotypes or pregnancy, like how is that progressing? Is the animal being born properly, or does it need intervention, or is an animal in heat and you need to go and breed that with the other AI or things like that?
There's a lot of conversations, particularly in the rise of agri-tech, in cattle breeding particularly, whereby the loss of the stockmanship and the sense of a stockman's eye. But it's more than that, isn't it? The 24/7 monitoring and the ability for us to enhance our genetic gain by having more of an eyes on the ground when we physically can't be there. Can you explain a little bit more about why technology won't take away from the stockmanship element, the element of the farmer's ability to understand his breeding program, and enhance it rather than take away?
Absolutely. So we aren't here to replace farm people. We are here to essentially give them superpowers. So like you said, even a well-trained stockman has to sleep. They probably have some other job that they need to go to or a family that they want to spend time with. Nobody can be there 24 hours a day watching these animals. And what our system gives is that 24-hour-a-day eyes on the ground, and those are trained eyes. So similar to the stockman, as they learn their trade, Betsy is trained in the same fashion. So she's learning the same way that they would learn. And she has the benefit of never getting bored, never falling asleep, never texting on their phone. And so she has this wealth of data in her back pocket that we can then give to the stockman in terms of a text message or a report. And they have the overall herd metrics that they can use to optimize their genetic program.
What type of data and information can you gather?
We gather everything that you can imagine. So there's about 100 points of data per second on every individual animal that we're collecting. Our AI pipeline is designed like Lego. So each model gets fit into the pipeline like another block of Lego, and they each do something different. And so the ones in the earlier part of the pipeline, they identify the animals or vehicles or people that they see in the frame of video. And then as we go down the pipeline, we also create a skeleton on each individual animal with 52 points to identify any changes in how they're walking, because we can calculate the angles between points and be able to see if they're changing their gait pattern. We can watch for things like how often they're coming to the water or the feed bunk. And any changes in that behavior can be recorded in the terms of an alert, if you'd like that sort of alert, as to some early indicators of illness potentially. We do proactive calving alerts and estrus alerts, like I mentioned earlier. And then here in Canada, we have predators. So we also have early predator alerts. So if there's a predator in the yard, especially for our lamb producers, they really like to have that notification option available to them.
Wow, that's incredible and got my mind going in a lot of different ways. But I'm dying to know, as those listening, who's Betsy and how did you come up with the name?
So Betsy is the personification of our AI pipeline. We wanted to give her a friendly face, a friendly name that would give the producers a little bit more of a relatable character, if you will, so that they weren't so put off by the idea of artificial intelligence on the ranch. BETSY stands for Bovine Expert Tracking and Surveillance. And so as we develop more models that head into the sheep space or the equine space, then we may rebrand BETSY in sort of a more species-friendly name. We'll see.
You've done very well to create a great acronym and a female name at the same time. So well done on that one. There is a lot of agri-tech promising to simplify our farmers' lives, and it sometimes can be very expensive, complicated. It could require internet connectivity that doesn't exist in some areas across the world. How have you been able to overcome that so that it is genuinely different and will improve the lives of our beef farmers, your ranchers?
So how we've designed our entire system is to be very cost effective. And we have our earlier founders, as well as advisors and beta sites that were on board to help us figure out our pricing structure and what was realistic to expect a rancher to pay for our system. And so what we've done is we've made it so that it's effectively the cost of the saving of one calf in the Canadian market will pay for the system for the year. And then that doesn't even take into account the cost savings of your time and energy spent out when nothing's going on with your herd. On top of that, we have designed our pipeline as well in such a way that even in a low bandwidth situation, we do need Wi-Fi for our cameras to talk to our AI pipeline. But even in a low bandwidth system, we can still pull out relevant data points and give those producers lots of information. Plus, with the introduction of satellite internet that's going global right now, what we're finding in Canada is that connectivity has essentially become a non-issue. And that's where we're really able to make use of the advances in agri-technology right now. And I think that livestock, in terms of technology advances, has been one of the slower to adopt. And that primarily was because of cost and connectivity. And as we head into 2024 and beyond, I think those issues are going to become less of an importance and allow for other companies as well to advance in the livestock space. And I think we're in for some really exciting times with what we're going to be able to do with technology and how we're going to be able to help producers.
If you've got a wide, expansive ranch farm, how does it work in terms of having multiple cameras when you've got large paddocks or fields?
So in the case of a large-scale operation, what we're finding is if we set up cameras at a spot where the animals tend to go all the time, or at least consistently throughout the day, like a water station or a feed bunk, that allows us to get those relevant data points as they come in. And then we can do things like check for animal counts. So if there's an animal missing, then we'll be able to tell that, because every time the animal comes up to the water, they're identified and tracked with all those same data points I talked about. It's not quite to the point where we can track really large paddocks 24 hours a day, because our cameras we would have to have too many cameras located at really remote locations. And so as the technology progresses and we're able to do things like utilize drone technology, then those things will change. But right now, we're relying on sort of the animals to come in for water or food or mineral stations and that sort of thing to get our data points.
Yeah. And data interoperability is a big conversation for us here in New Zealand agri-tech space. Is it the same for the Canadian agri-tech conversation around what's talking to each other and how technology is working together? I'm thinking along the lines of our wearable technologies with cattle and things like that.
Absolutely. So it's the same here in Canada. There are a lot of different options for producers in terms of wearable technologies, management software, traceability software, all those different pieces coming together. And so what we've decided as a company is that we want to make it open to all companies to be able to pass data back and forth. Nothing is more annoying than having to log into 5 or 6 different platforms to get all of your data, and then having to sift through what's relevant and what's not. And so what we would really like to do is come together with all of those platforms and have an open relationship with them so that people can choose the platform they want to use for their analytics, and we can feed or pull data from other systems as well.
What's coming up for BETSY and for OneCup AI in the next year or so in terms of exciting developments? Whereabouts is the next sort of green shoots for your company?
So right now we're just finalizing getting our estrus reporting online for our current producers and how that's going to look for them. And then into 2024, we're really excited to build in a little bit more accuracy in terms of our lameness models, and then continuing to work with the associations to get those phenotype tracking models on and into the hands of our producers. So really 2024 is sort of into the area of phenotype tracking and the ability to optimize those genetics and overall herd output.
And if you were to, say, invest $1 billion of your own money in the agri-tech space, where would you hedge your bets?
I would hedge my bets in the livestock sector because, like I mentioned earlier, I think taking down all of those previous barriers to entry, we've got some really exciting technologies coming out of the livestock sector. And I think that is where I would absolutely invest, because that is the future. Protein is not going away, and people really want to have more optimization, not even just in terms of genetics, but for output of GHG and that sort of thing. So I think being able to track all of that stuff is going to go a long way into sustainability and the creation of the protein industry for years to come. And livestock technology is where it's going to be.
Mokah, thank you so much for your time. I can see why the delegation of New Zealand's beef industry who went up to watch your presentation at the Beef Industry Federation Symposium were so excited about it. It's really, really exciting where BETSY is going into the future and OneCup AI. Thank you very, very much for joining us on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.